Mind you, we have a Ask the Experts or Your Questions Answered special coming up on all aspects regarding pensions and mortgage. But let's hear the latest from the government as some of these figures, of course, continue to settle. Chris Philp is Chief Secretary to the Treasury, so effectively second in command there, and joins me now. The figures are truly mind-boggling. Almost £1 trillion wiped off the value of our pensions. The bank having to spend £65 billion to avert pensions collapse. This is all down to the fiscal incompetence and near criminal responsibility of that shocking budget on Friday, isn't it? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Nice to see you too. No, I don't think it's you can attribute it in that way. We've seen for the last few months moves in global financial markets, largely caused by Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. Just a few days ago, we saw the Bank of Japan exceptionally intervening in the yen-dollar market. So we've seen all kinds of things happen around the world. We've seen interest rates rising around the world. In fact, over the last 6 or 9 months, in some countries like the USA, actually rising more than they have
Is that the best
here in the United Kingdom.
Is that the best you and your team? That's the best you and your team have got, is it?
So I don't accept your characterisation. The plan that the Chancellor set out, on Friday is a growth plan to get the economy growing. He and the Prime Minister also decisively intervened in the energy crisis, because you will have been reporting in the last few weeks the prospect of energy prices going up to £6,000 or £7,000 a year, owing to Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and the government has intervened to stop that happening. The average household now won't see a bill more than £2,500 in addition
let's
to up to £1,200 of support.
They nearly saw their pensions go down the gurgler. Perhaps I can read to you a couple of headlines. These aren't tabloid newspapers. The Times: the government's culpable failure to acknowledge the constraints on public borrowing has resulted in swift financial crisis and political humiliation. You'll see no mention of the word Ukraine. The Financial Times: do bear with me. To borrow from Ernest Hemingway, a government loses credibility gradually, then suddenly. The UK has proved a textbook example. Since Kwasi Kwarteng's reckless mini-budget last Friday, the pound touched an all-time low against the dollar, gilt yields surged, banks scrambled to pull mortgage products, and the IMF issued a scathing rebuke of the Chancellor's plans. Chief Secretary, no mention of Ukraine, total mention of Kwasi Kwarteng and the budget. Stop treating my listeners as fools. This is down to your boss's work, and it needs to be changed, doesn't it?
No, well, if you listen to the reaction of British business organisations to Kwasi Kwarteng's growth plan on Friday, like for example, the Confederation of British Industry, the CBI, the Federation of Small Businesses, the British Chambers of Commerce, they all strongly welcomed the growth plan, and they are the organisations that represent
do you
British
think they
businesses.
Strongly welcome the collapse of their pension funds?
Just bear with me as I bore with you. Those business organisations strongly welcomed the growth plan and the energy intervention, and it's their members who are responsible for ultimately creating jobs and for growing the economy. Look, the Bank of England intervened exceptionally in a very targeted way yesterday. The Bank of Japan did something in the currency markets exceptionally a few days before that. That intervention appears to have been successful. The markets have settled. And what will ultimately, I think, be of importance and interest to your...
You took the pound to an all-time low. Is that success? God almighty, what's failure in your book?
Well, I mean, it's obviously, I'm not going to offer running commentary on the country market, but it has gone up since then, I would just respectfully point out. And what is ultimately important is that we get this economy growing, we get people's wages going up. That is what the growth plan will do, and make sure we have an internationally competitive set of tax rates. We're going to expedite infrastructure projects like road and rail and energy, so we're not importing electricity. We've stopped the prospect of your listeners, households up and down the country, facing £6,000 or £7,000 energy bills. And there is no way that the government will or should apologise for having protected households from energy bills that might have been as high as £7,000 a year. I think your listeners will welcome the fact that they're not going to be facing those massive energy bills anymore.
Credit to you for coming out. Why aren't we hearing from the Chancellor, your boss, or indeed the Prime Minister? Why are they in hiding?
Well, I'm not sure they're in hiding. I think
why aren't
the
they coming
Chancellor...
out?
Well, I think he's up in Darlington today and doing some interviews up there, as I understand it. I saw the Prime Minister twice yesterday in Downing Street. I think she's doing some interviews as well.
She's doing 25 5-minute interviews with various local radio stations. I remind you, the country, in the views of some, is teetering on the brink of financial meltdown, and she decides to talk to BBC Radio up a whoop-whoop. Why?
Well, just to be clear, I absolutely do not accept your characterisation of the economy just a second ago. Look, I mean,
you have seen the headlines, haven't you?
Look. I'm very happy to be here talking about this, and I'm happy to answer any question you've got.
You don't think a £65 billion injection by the Bank of England indicates an economy in serious problems?
Look, they were making a very targeted, time-limited intervention. There was a particular idiosyncrasy to do with the way that particular pension vehicles used long-dated gilts. It was a very targeted, very specific intervention to address that issue, which they've successfully done independently. Of course, the Bank of England act independently, and they're not the only central bank to have had to make an intervention. Like I said, the Bank of Japan intervened in the yen-dollar market just a few days ago.
OK. This is a crisis, though. You accept that? Or you say that this was all part of the plan on Friday, was it?
Look, I don't accept the word crisis at all. There's been in the last 6 to 9 months. Just in the last 6 to 9 months, the financial markets have been in some volatility around the world. Interest rates around the world have been going up. In some other countries, like the USA, more than they have in the United Kingdom. Clearly, to put the country's economy on a properly sustainable, growing footing, we need a proper growth plan. That means tax rates that are competitive. And let me just expand on that. The reason we need competitive tax rates is that businesses and successful people have a choice about where they locate. They don't have to locate in the United Kingdom. They could go to New York. They could go to Singapore. They could go anywhere in the world. We want to make sure they come here, they invest here, they create new jobs here in the United Kingdom. That is why competitive tax rates are important, combined with the so-called supply-side reforms, which mean reducing regulation on businesses, investing in infrastructure, investing in domestic energy production for obvious reasons. That's what the plan sets out. And it's, in my view, across the medium term, quite clearly the right thing to do, in addition, of course, to making sure that people don't face crippling energy bills this winter.
Yes, I think we have referenced that now. Can you tell me categorically the 45% top rate of tax will still be scrapped? No U-turns?
Yes, because what I just made the case a second ago for why a competitive rates of tax are important to make sure this country is internationally competitive against whether it's New York or Singapore or wherever it may be in the world. We need to be competitive.
Why are we not allowed to see the OBR report, Chief Secretary?
You will see the OBR report when they produce it on the 23rd of November, and there'll be another one. There'll be a second one accompanying the spring budget.
Why do we have to wait effectively 2 months, Chief Secretary?
Because on the 23rd of November, not only will the OBR be producing its full scoring, but the Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, will also be laying out his medium-term fiscal plan, which will explain...
Will he still be in post in November 23rd?
How all of this will be done, of course he will, how all this will be done responsibly, and it will include a measure to get debt over GDP falling over the medium term. And speaking of debt over GDP, which is this sort of critical measure of government debt that economists look at, the UK today has the second lowest level of debt to GDP of any G7 country. Right. So we are in a position of some strength to start with.
Can I remind you of a tweet you put out on Friday morning saying, quotes, "Great to see sterling strengthening on the back of the new UK growth plan." Want to revise that, Chief Secretary?
Yeah, well, as I say, currency markets have gone up and down.
No, but can you just say you got that wrong?
What is important?
I'm sorry, Mr. Philp. Can you just say you got that wrong?
I'm not going to comment on every tweet I've ever sent with the benefit of hindsight. Currency markets have gone up and down. But what is important is we've got a growth plan to grow the economy, and we've made a decisive intervention to protect your listeners from crippling energy bills that would otherwise have been £6,000-7,000 a year. That is not going to happen. We've protected your listeners, and that, I think, is what's important here.
All right, finally, I'm sure you've had a busy week. I don't know if you watch the football, but can I put it to you that Kwasi Kwarteng is the Harry Maguire of the Cabinet and Liz Truss Nick Pope? They are both incompetent.
No, I don't accept that. I've already explained why I think the growth plan and the energy intervention to protect your listeners...
One gives the ball away in midfield and the other can't hold on to it. That's the truth of the matter, isn't it? Kwarteng and Truss, Maguire and Pope.
I don't accept that. And by the way, I think Nick Pope and Harry Maguire get a bit of a tough time. I play in defence when I play on a Sunday, and it's not always easy being in defence. And I think you're being a bit tough on Harry Maguire there.
Well, he gave the ball away outside their goal, as I recall it. But thank you for your time. Always good speaking to the Conservative MP, Chief Secretary of the Treasury, Chris Philp, appearing here on LBC, where the time is 8 o'clock. News is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.